A politician saying one thing and then doing another? What? I must have the vapors. But that's what's happening in Israel's war against Gaza. If you suffered through the State of the Union address, then you might remember hearing Biden say this.
Israel also has a fundamental responsibility, though, to protect innocent civilians in Gaza. I've been working nonstop to establish an immediate ceasefire that would last for 6 weeks to get all the prisoners released, all the hostages released, to get the hostages home and ease the intolerable and humanitarian crisis. Tonight, I'm directing the U.S. military to lead an emergency mission to establish a temporary pier in the Mediterranean on the coast of Gaza that can receive large shipments carrying food, water, medicine, and temporary shelters. No U.S. boots will be on the ground. A temporary pier will enable a massive increase in the amount of humanitarian assistance getting into Gaza every day. Israel must allow more aid into Gaza to ensure humanitarian workers aren't caught in the crossfire. To the leadership of Israel, I say this: humanitarian assistance cannot be a secondary consideration or a bargaining chip. Protecting and saving innocent lives has to be a priority.
So it's our responsibility to support Israel, apparently, to the tune of about $3.8 billion a year that they already get. And don't forget the extra billions they received after October 7th. So after all that funding, we also have to demand that they protect innocent civilians. Yet it's our taxpayer dollars that are funding Israel's war against Gaza. Our bombs, Palestinian bodies, and Israel's war. Now, Biden may say that he wants a ceasefire, but if he really did, then he would stop sending weapons to Israel. No warheads, no war. We don't just give a lot of money to Israel, but we also supply them with a lot of weapons. It's kind of like saying I want to stop eating Twinkies, but then buying more Twinkies. Why do we say you should stop bombing as much and have a ceasefire, but then we keep sending you more weapons? It gets dumber, though. We're also sending in humanitarian aid as we pay for the very bombs causing the humanitarian crisis. Here's a thought. Let's send no bombs, and then we don't have to feel guilty about it. The onslaught would stop because eventually Israel wouldn't be able to afford their war. Again, this is like someone having diabetes, shoving their face full of Twinkies and just going, well, I'll adjust my insulin. It'll be okay. And Uncle Joe can say that Israel has to step up their humanitarian aid, but they haven't and they won't. Within 48 hours of the State of the Union address, Israelis were throwing dance parties along the Gaza border, trying to block aid, including jumping on top of trucks. They were vowing to not let another loaf of bread through. Wow, what heroes trying to starve to death children. But think about it, something's not adding up here. Does Biden really want the bombing to stop? I mean, if he did, wouldn't he stop asking Congress for more money and stop taking more weapons from our soldiers and from our reserves and giving it to Israel? Between 2009 and 2020, more than 70% of the arms Israel bought came from the United States. If humanitarian aid shouldn't be secondary, then why didn't we pull all our funding after the Flower Massacre? If the IDF can't distinguish between aid drops and Hamas, then that says a lot about the intelligence of their officers. At the very least, shouldn't we demand accountability and conditions on our financial support for Israel? Would it really be too much to ask for Israel to stop having dance parties that's preventing aid from getting in? Is Biden just a dementia patient in the Oval Office, or is he just Genocide Joe? I'd say it's both. Sure, he definitely goes in and out of it mentally, but he knows exactly what he's doing with Israel. After all, he's bragged for decades that he's a Zionist. And here's the giveaway that he knows what he's doing. The occasional tough talk at the State of the Union address, or that very obvious hot mic moment afterwards where he said Netanyahu needs a come-to-Jesus moment. Yeah, that's all a horse and pony show. You see, the Biden administration has been hiding the amount of weapons it's transferring to Israel, using loopholes and schemes to conceal and cover up the massive volume of supplies that we're forking over. Since the beginning of the Gaza war, the United States has provided at least 23,000 precision-guided weapons, including Hellfire air-to-ground missiles. We've also sent drones. We've sent 58,000 155 millimeter artillery shells and munitions for its Iron Dome air defense systems, and Joint Direct Attack Munition Kits, which can make unguided bombs into smart bombs. Congress, though, can block the sale of these through a joint resolution, but it's never happened. A president, however, can bypass the mere congressional review if they consider the situation a national security emergency. And guess what? Uncle Joe has used this exception for both Israel and Ukraine. In fact, out of more than 100 individual transfers, Congress was only notified of 2 weapons shipments. By skirting the major foreign weapon sales process, Biden has been able to do an end run around Congress, as well as dodge public disclosure. All those other weapons transfers that Congress didn't know about were conducted using loopholes. As the Wall Street Journal notes, those tactics, quote, include drawing from U.S. stockpiles, accelerating previously approved deliveries, and sending weapons in smaller batches that fall below a dollar threshold that requires the administration to notify Congress. For a man who was senator for 36 years, I think he would know the rule. I would also think he'd be aware of the Leahy Law, which prohibits the U.S. from providing security assistance to foreign governments and violating human rights. Is the Israel government starving innocent Palestinian women and children somehow not a violation of human rights? Is destroying all their hospitals not a violation of their human rights? Is destroying infrastructure to the point that people are drinking seawater not a violation of their human rights? Is shooting at people, getting bags of flour, not a violation of human rights? Is Israel blocking aid and coming in having dance parties not a violation of someone's human rights? Now, as it is often stated, why would a country send aid to their enemy? Well, first, Palestinians shouldn't be their enemy if this war is really about October 7th. Hamas should be the enemy. That aside, let's dive into why they need aid and couldn't just source their own food. The median age of Palestinians is just 18. In fact, about 40% of Gaza's population is 14 years old or younger. So you're basically asking kids to solve an international humanitarian crisis when Congress and adults in major countries have failed to do so for decades. Furthermore, Palestinians have never really been free. When they're barely surviving and living every day in an open-air prison, it's hard to prepare for future genocide and invasion. Since 2007, Israel has implemented a blockade to restrict the entry of goods, meaning Israel controls Gaza's borders. The International Committee of the Red Cross says this is illegal and violates the Geneva Convention. The UN, as well as various human rights groups and legal scholars, consider Gaza to be under military occupation by Israel. Did you know that at one time Gaza had 7 entry-exit points? Today, though, there are just 3 that remain open. Israel controls 2, and Egypt controls 1. It's damn near impossible to get in and out. Let's take a deeper look at some of these entry-exit points. Egypt imposes expensive and unofficial coordination fees and gives humiliating searches to Palestinians looking to cross. The protocols forced on Palestinians to cross can extend one's trip up to 3 days. The Erez exit, controlled by Israel, requires a permit, and they are known to make those seeking to cross for medical reasons wait up to 50 days to get one. Many permits are rejected outright for ambiguous security reasons or just ignored entirely. Israel's second crossing, Karim Shalom, is used for transporting humanitarian aid. But this one was rendered useless after that 2007 blockade because it bans all items that could have a dual use, meaning anything that has both a civilian and military use is barred from coming into Gaza. And yeah, most countries aren't going to aid their enemies, but other countries don't occupy an entire group of people for decades and then wage war on them like they have. And most people, when they're fighting their enemy, don't have the ability to control their borders and prevent aid from going in as much as Israel has. The very fact that Israel could cut off electricity to Gaza after October 7th says that they were living in an open-air prison. Think about that. I mean, cutting off one's electricity should clue you into the fact that Palestinians are an occupied people and unable to fend for themselves. They can't leave, and they can't even live there. It's really quite simple. Biden is lying, and people are dying. Thanks for listening to Overnight Opinions. Be sure to tune in next Sunday night for an all-new episode. In the meantime, be sure to follow the Ladies Love Politics channel on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Variety on Social, True Social, X, BitChute, and Rumble.